Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It's Monday, January 19th, 2026. This is Spathon with another episode of The Swamp, where I cover everything that happened today in our crazy, chaotic, and often too corrupt federal system. Politicians, administration officials, agencies, leaders, the military, law enforcement, they're all posting to the internet every day, and I scour all the accounts to cover them right here on The Swamp, Monday through Friday. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like and consider subscribing to the channel. And if you decide to drop a comment below, I just might read it on tomorrow's episode. And every article you'll see in this video will be linked in the description below. And this is from the U.S. Department of the Interior. Happy MLK Jr. Day, or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I should say, because it is Dr. MLK Jr. Day. And I think for the most part, the federal government was pretty much shut down everywhere. Not to say that nobody was posting to it. People were definitely posting to the different government accounts today. Obviously, this comes from the Department of the Interior, so they were posting. It wasn't a crazy heavy day today, so not sure if this episode will go an hour and a half. Maybe it will. Every time I say that, it usually goes over 2 hours, so anyway, we'll see. Let's see. So the Department of the Interior, 8 hours ago, says, today we honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a beacon of the civil rights movement. We reflect on his profound impact on our nation and carry his message forward through service, compassion, and action.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream.
Right there at the steps of the Lincoln Monument, or Memorial.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color
I
of
have
their
a dream.
skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Absolutely. The content of their character, and also the merits of the individual. Something the Democrats today don't seem to understand too well. And yeah, Lincoln Memorial, right? Sometimes I get that confused. Monument, Memorial. It's the Lincoln Memorial. I mean, come on, I know that. All right, so this is from the Library of Congress. On this Martin Luther King Day, or Martin Luther King Jr. Day, enjoy images from the Glenn Piercy collection at the Library of Congress, a rare unguarded public moment of Dr. King smiling at a March 1965 Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee meeting. A snapshot of joy amid a historic civil rights struggle is a highlight. There he is, the man himself, giving a big pearly white smile with Malcolm X over here on the left. I definitely recognize Malcolm X. And there's the march back in 1965. Man, houses, man. In some ways, they look a lot different, but not really. Anyway, so yeah, man, that was back in March of 1965. And I've got this quick video that I came across on YouTube. I tried to find a real quick clip that just gave a really brief summary as to Martin Luther King Jr.'s his legacy, his biography. And I found the 1-minute video on YouTube, so I figured I'd give this a play.
In high school, Martin Luther King Jr. wins an oratorical contest stating, "Black America still wears chains." On the bus ride home, King is forced to stand so white passengers can sit down. To satisfy his urge to serve humanity, King joins the seminary and begins to fight for social justice. After leading the Montgomery bus boycott, the King family home is bombed. He continues on organizing nonviolent protests in Albany and Birmingham before the March on Washington. King wins the Nobel Prize for his dynamic leadership and organizes the Selma to Montgomery marches, expanding his political focus to include poverty and opposition to the Vietnam War. At the height of his political influence, Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the crowning achievement of the civil rights era, would not have been possible without the courage of Martin Luther King Jr.
And there you have it. His brief biography. And we'll roll on to the next one from the U.S. Capitol Police. Today we remember and celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Another one from DEA HQ. Today we honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., remembering his commitment to justice and fairness. Make MLK Day a day on, not a day off, and be of service. And from House Democrats, today we remember the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. House Democrats are committed to upholding his legacy to achieve equality for all Americans, which I think quite a few people would probably push back against that because, DEI and so on and so forth, or whatever. Now's not the time. I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, I'll just move on. Department of Agriculture. Honoring the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. means continuing the work he began. Today, we celebrate his life by continuing his mission of service dedicated to uplifting those around us and strengthening our communities. And that was posted about 11 hours ago. I think that's the last. Oh, no, here's another one from ATF on MLK Day. The ATF honors the life, legacy, and tireless service of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His vision of justice and equality continues to inspire. We reaffirm our commitment to protecting communities by combating violent crime and upholding the law for every American. And you might be asking yourself, like, why the obscure agencies like the USDA or Department of Agriculture, the ATF, and so on? Well, I wanted to illustrate that because literally every department in the government was posting about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. today, as they do every year on MLK Jr. Day. So I just wanted to illustrate that, as obscure as an agency might be, not having maybe directly involved with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. back in the day, like the DEA. I don't even think the DEA even existed back then. U.S. Capitol Police, I'm sure that they had some involvement in it with like the crowd control or maybe keeping the peace when they were marching into Washington, D.C. and so on. But anyway, let me just take a quick look. I can't help myself. I got to look at a couple of these comments just to see. So I said MLK Jr. advocated for equality among blacks and whites. Democrats are not there. So House Democrats remembering MLK by posting a platitude while spending decades running cities where black families are trapped in failing schools, skyrocketing violent crime, and generational poverty. You don't uphold this legacy. You exploit his name while peddling the exact opposite of his colorblind character first dream. That was pretty well said, actually. They've been segregating in big cities, promoting the welfare state, making it so you can't have more than $2,000 worth of assets if you want to be on the welfare system, which forces people to remain in poverty, and so on and so forth. So the Bradys have more kids than the entire Minnesota Somali daycare center. Okay. That didn't have anything to do with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but FYI, if MLK Jr. was alive today, Democrats would call him the black face of white supremacy because he preached equality, not equity. I said what I said, and I 100% agree with that. There's no doubt in my mind. And I also have no doubt in my mind that if MLK Jr. was still alive today, he would probably be a Republican, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I'm sure that if he took his politics from back then, or essentially just fast forwarding him in a time machine from the 60s up until now, he would be way more aligned with Republicans than Democrats. Let's see. How absolutely rich that you're invoking Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy while conveniently memory holing your party's entire historical record. The gall is truly something to behold. Oh man, I'm not going to read through all of that. That is way too long. But I'm sure that's very profound. Holy shit, man. I hope that they posted that on their own profile. That's a lot to say for only 3 likes. Anyway, stop inciting violence. And it was your dumb party that voted against Dr. King and for segregation. Yeah, man, it was all across the South, man. The Democrats had a chokehold on the South forever. Jim Crow era, that was Democrats. That wasn't Republicans. Yeah, there's probably a few Republicans in the South back then. Yeah, I'm sure some minority percentage of Republicans that were down in the South and maybe tolerated what was going on, but that was all run by Democrats back in the day. Then the Great Migration happened, where most Black Americans moved up into the big cities, where the Democrats now keep many of them mentally enslaved and not necessarily physically. But I mean, look, the welfare state, I guess you can make an argument. Not that most Black Americans are even in the welfare state. Maybe once upon a time they were, but I find it hard to believe that most of them are these days. I mean, in many ways, the Black community's come a long way, especially over the last maybe 20, 30 years. I mean, look, man, like racism was really not much of a thing in the 90s, maybe even into the 2000s. And it seems like it really went off the rails during maybe the 2008 financial crash, and then Occupy Wall Street happened. And I think that's when the deep state and the establishment got really threatened because because the left and the right came together for Occupy Wall Street. What was that, like 2011? And they were down there protesting for the entire summer, and everybody was united with what they wanted to achieve. And just, it seemed like as the weeks went on, it just seemed like everything just started becoming like a race issue or a sex issue. And no, we've had too many men up here talking today. No, we got to get more women a turn. And then it just kind of devolved from there. And yeah, and I think that's really where it started to really go off the rails. But I mean, that's just kind of a personal opinion. But all right, so anyway, I got this from Scott Turner, who's the Secretary for Housing and Urban Development, the 19th. Today, we're restoring the spirit of the civil rights movement with equal enforcement of anti-discrimination law for all Americans. No longer will disparate impact theory be used to contort the meaning of fair housing under the law. HUD is restoring fairness to civil rights enforcement. And this is from National Review. I assume he's going to have that linked here. Oh, yeah, here we go. nationalreview.com. And I'll go over some of it. If it's not lengthy, I usually get through the shorter articles, but if it's lengthy, it'll be linked below if you want to check it out. HUD has proposed a rule to end the agency's use of this pernicious legal doctrine, and I probably said that word wrong, but whatever. The Biden administration's many failures are a matter of public record. Less well-known is how it weaponized civil rights law against the American people. While President Trump has undone the damage from Biden's policies in countless areas, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development is defanging the pernicious legal doctrine that fueled Biden's government weaponization. Disparate impact theory. HUD has proposed a rule to end the agency's use of disparate impact theory in fair housing and related civil rights enforcement. Disparate impact theory holds that a neutral policy or practice is unlawfully discriminatory if it has an equal effect or an unequal effect on different. Oh no, are they paywalling me? Oh no, come on, National Review. Bastards! All right, well, if you're subscribed to National Review, then it'll be linked for you. I guess for the rest of us, be mad at National Review, I guess. That sucks. Yeah, all right, whatever. I would have time to review all of these articles before I start the show, but I have a day job. I work all day, and it takes long enough for me to compile everything. Usually on a nightly basis on the Swamp, Monday through Friday, I put together anywhere from 50 to 65 posts that I weed throughout the day. Anytime that I have time to do so. And then I try to put them all in order as best I can because posts just go out seemingly almost at random throughout the day. So I try to put all like the law enforcement stuff in one area, the military, like energy and jobs and so on. I try to keep it all nice and neat. But anyway, so this comes from the White House from 5 hours ago. National championship on the line. President Trump will be in attendance for the college football playoff national championship tonight. So yeah, President Trump's going to be there in attendance. Miami versus Indiana. And I actually lived a part of my life in Indiana. And I think this is the first time IU's ever gone to the championship. So yeah, never was an IU fan. I've got family that are IU fans. But yeah, my, like most of whom I aligned with were Purdue University fans. Matter of fact, I proposed to my ex on the Wabash River right in West Lafayette. And that was like way back in like 2002, something like that. But yeah, man, hopefully Indiana wins. I honestly don't even know if this is happening tonight. Oh yeah, it is tonight. It says it's tonight. If I learn how to fucking read. Yeah, happening tonight. Not sure what the score is. I suppose I could take a look, but that's going to be irrelevant to anybody who's watching this because the game's probably going to be over by then. Yeah, can you tell I'm not a sports fan? All right, so anyway, let's move on to the White House. Now, after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it. So this is a lengthy post. So far I've read every word of President Trump's Truth Social post, and I might as well read this one. So I have to take a deep breath for this one. So we have subsidized Denmark and all of the countries of the European Union and others for many years. Let's see if I make that bigger. No, I forgot. Yeah, it always does that thing on the side. So by not charging them tariffs or any other forms of remuneration, now after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there is not a thing Denmark can do about it. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection, one added recently. Only the United States of America under President Donald J. Trump can play in this game, and very successfully at that. Nobody will touch this sacred piece of land, especially since the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. On top of everything else, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet. These countries who are playing this very dangerous game have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. Therefore, it is imperative that in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures must be taken so that this potentially perilous situation end quickly and without question. Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. The United States has been trying to do this transaction for over 150 years. Many presidents have tried, and for good reason, but Denmark has always refused. Now, because of the Golden Dome and modern-day weapon systems, both offensive and defensive, we need to acquire is especially important. Hundreds of billions of dollars are currently being spent on security programs having to do with the dome, including for the possible protection of Canada, and this very brilliant but highly complex system can only work at its maximum potential and efficiency because of angles, meters, and bounds if this land is included in it. The United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and or any of these countries that have put so much at risk despite all that we have done for them, including maximum protection over so many decades. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. T., President of the United States of America. Yeah, I don't know if he's really pulling the trigger a little too early. I think before I put something this aggressive out there, I probably, if I were him, I probably would have waited for the Supreme Court to rule on the whole tariffs thing because, look, I know that Supreme Court justices, they're not supposed to be, well, I don't know if I'd say they're not supposed to be, but I think, for just for the purpose of what they're studying, like they really shouldn't be looking at daily politics. And as far as I know, historically, I think they tend to shy away from daily, ongoings with like news and politics and stuff because they don't want any bias out there to influence their decisions. But man, this is pretty forward. Look, I know it's a matter of national security. I'm sure we have been trying to get Greenland for 150 years. I don't know, man. I think using tariffs, like weaponization comes to mind, but at the same time, it really doesn't because Greenland probably is a geopolitical strategic advantage for national security, especially with the whole Golden Dome happening. Greenland, I'm sure, is in a very sensitive area. I mean, it is in a very sensitive area. It's pretty close to the U.S., globally speaking. So maybe it's justified, maybe not. I don't know, man. I guess I got mixed feelings about this. So yeah, it looks like he's dead set on getting Greenland. I mean, he's hell bent on it. So are we going to end up acquiring Greenland? I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think Denmark's going to give it up, but maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And I believe that Davos meeting's happening either this week or next week, the Davos group, and I believe that President Trump's going to be attending that. Well, maybe, I don't remember if it's called the Davos group, but it's in Davos. All right, so this is from another post from President Trump's True Social. A front page article in the fake news Wall Street Journal states without any verification that I offered Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase the job of Fed chairman. This statement is totally untrue. There was never such an offer, and in fact, I'll be suing JP Morgan Chase over the next 2 weeks for incorrectly and inappropriately debanking me after the January 6th protest, a protest that turned out to be correct for those doing the protesting. The election was rigged. Why wouldn't the Wall Street Journal call me to ask whether or not such an offer was made? I would have very quickly told them no, and that would have been the end of the story. Also, one was led to believe that I offered Jamie Dimon the job of Secretary of the Treasury, but that would be one that he would be very interested in. The problem is I have Scott Bessent doing a fantastic job, a superstar. Why would I give it to Jamie? No such offer was made there or even thought of either. The Wall Street Journal ought to do better fact-checking or its already strained credibility will continue to dive. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Man, oh man. President Trump, man, he's dialing up the drama today. All right, and we got this from Caroline Levitt. Weekend crackdown. ICE nabs dozens of violent illegal immigrants in a nationwide sweep. We're going to get into the whole immigration issue, which is front and center because the Democrats are really laser focused on making it front and center because, I mean, that's just one of the big things that they want to run on ahead of the midterms. They want to be pro-illegal immigration, pro-crime, as it would seem. They're trying to defund ICE. They're threatening to shut down the government in order to get ICE defunded. I don't know if this strategy is really going to pay off. I mean, look, I think if everybody's paying attention who voted during the 2024 election, I don't think there'd be a slim chance in hell that they would stand any chance in winning the midterms. It's almost like they're just looking at history and they're like, well, historically, over the last 100 years, any president who wins their election during the midterm, like, what is it, like 95% of the time, they end up losing in the midterms. And by they, I mean their party. So, I mean, the odds are stacked, historically speaking, pretty heavily against the Republicans for retaining the House and the Senate, just based on that, the not the bell curve, what is it, the pendulum, how the pendulum swings one way and the other, to the right, to the left. So with that said, I'm sure for the foreseeable future, it's going to be a lot of posts about ICE and Minnesota and fraud and the protests going on. And they're trying to make what's her name who struck that agent with her vehicle, and he returned with fire or with firepower, killing her. Of course, they're trying to make that into a George Floyd 2.0 situation, and it just goes on and on. But anyway, weekend crackdown. ICE nabs dozens of violent illegal immigrants in nationwide sweep. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested more illegal aliens convicted of violent crimes around the country as anti-ICE protests continued in Minnesota. And I forgot, Daily Wire likes paywall, but I got my little trusty trick that I tend to do when it comes to not only the Daily Wire, but there's a number of other websites where you can kind of get around it, but shh. All right, so the Department of Homeland Security provided the Daily Wire on Monday with over a dozen illegal immigrants convicted of serious crimes who were arrested during ICE operations between January 16th and 18th. Quote, our ICE law enforcement never stopped fulfilling their mission to make America safe again, Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told the Daily Wire. While Americans were enjoying their weekends, our law enforcement was arresting murderers, pedos, R-worders, and gang members. The arrests highlighted by Homeland Security were carried out by ICE officers in Baltimore, San Francisco, New Orleans, Houston, Atlanta, Dallas, San Antonio, Buffalo, Los Angeles, Newark, and Philadelphia. According to Homeland Security, those arrested included Manuel Mata Ruiz, a 55-year-old Guatemalan national convicted of second-degree murder and first-degree R in Rutherford County, North Carolina. Benjamin Zaragoza Garcia, 32 years old, from Mexico, robbery with gang enhancement in Riverside, California. Alfredo Ordonez, 31, from Mexico, exploitation of a minor in Shelby County, Tennessee, gun possession in Memphis. Ronald Garby, 27-year-old from Cuba, convicted of assault of a family member in Houston. Juan Salinas, 51, from Mexico, convicted of larceny of a motor vehicle in Lemoore County, North Carolina. Jose Choxian, a 35-year-old from Guatemala, convicted of simple S battery and soliciting a prostitute. I think I could probably say that word here, right? In Terrebonne, Louisiana. Ibuelo Lopez Arzadi, a 29-year-old from Mexico, convicted of burglary of a building in Georgetown. And it goes on. So this one from Haiti, convicted of burglary. El Salvador, burglary in LA. Brazil, child P in the U.S. District Court of Massachusetts. That individual is convicted. Let's see. Mexican national convicted of first-degree S assault of a minor without consent in Nebraska. This individual from Honduras, convicted of assault by pointing a gun in Lee County, North Carolina. This individual in Honduras, convicted of assault on a peace officer in Texas. Afghan national, robbery in LA. Illegal from Guatemala, convicted of strangulation in Philadelphia. And anyway, it goes on. Despite a 1,300% increase in assaults against them, our officers continue to put their lives on the line 7 days a week to remove heinous criminals from American neighborhoods, McLaughlin said of the arrest. Anti-ICE protests continued in full over the weekend, including the targeting of a church by protesters who entered a Sunday morning worship service and started yelling. Those protesters are facing potential federal charges for disrupting a church service. What? That you could be charged with a federal crime for disrupting a church service. I didn't know that. Maybe it's one of those like 165-year-old laws that we don't really enforce anymore, but it's still on the books. Yeah, I did see that. I've got posts regarding that. I'll even show you the video because that's coming up here in a minute. All right, but first, we've got U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This weekend, criminal illegal alien Jose Miguel Espinoza from Guatemala rammed our ICE officer's vehicle with his own. The same vehicle Jose used to ram us was previously used to transport criminal illegal aliens. This incident is just one of many that have contributed to the 3,000% increase in vehicle rammings against federal law enforcement. In addition to deportation, Jose now faces severe legal consequences. Look, if you ram, whether if it's ICE vehicles or ICE agents themselves, no matter what, that's got to be assault with a deadly weapon, right? I'm assuming that is. Which, yeah, I mean, you're talking decades in prison for that one. This one comes from Trisha McLaughlin. Yesterday in St. Paul, ICE conducted a targeted operation of 2 convicted S offenders. Now, let me just hit the pause button real quick. Usually, I like to read the bottom first because she's actually responding to this post. So let me read this initially. From 11 hours ago, Matt McDermott. Yesterday, Reuters captured ICE breaking down a door and dragging a man. I don't see them dragging him out anywhere. It looks like they are walking him out, not dragging him, out half naked into the freezing cold in St. Paul. According to his sister-in-law, they returned him after realizing he's a naturalized U.S. citizen with no criminal record. Let's see. So Hmong American Experience. Have no clue what this account is. It's not, as far as I know, it's no official account in any capacity. No, it's not. It's actually her sister-in-law. So yeah, ICE came to my brother-in-law's Saley's apartment, broke down the door, trashed the place, handcuffed him, put a gun to his daughter-in-law's head. Of course, none of this is going to be corroborated. It's all he said, she said. I have a feeling that she's probably quite far on the left, but I'm just throwing that out there. Just a wild guess, shot in the dark. They did not allow him to put on proper clothing and force him outside in freezing weather. Solly is a naturalized U.S. citizen. He has no criminal record. ICE drove him around for nearly an hour, questioned him, and fingerprinted him. Only after all of that did they realize he had no criminal history and no reason to be detained. They then dropped him back off at his apartment like nothing happened. We believe they were looking for someone who previously lived there, but instead of asking for identification, they chose violence, intimidation, and humiliation. All right. Well, that's what she says. And violence, not seeing any violence. And it's kind of hard to take these people seriously when they say he was dragged out of his apartment, and then they even shared this photo that clearly shows that he's not being dragged anywhere. And yeah, none of that is injuries. All of that, I don't remember what that condition is, but that's when you're in your elder years and your blood vessels, like they, I don't know if it's seeping or if blood vessels that pop or whatever, but basically blood just collects like right beneath the surface of your skin. Very, very common for elderly people. I mean, I would go as far as to say like you're probably more likely to end up with that if you're old enough than not. Anyway, so Trisha McLaughlin, she responded to this and she said, oh yeah, by the way, which I already mentioned a minute ago, she's the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. So she does hold an official position. I don't know why they didn't give her the gray badge. That's kind of it kind of irritates me because I tend to only want to share accounts that have the gray badge because those are the official government accounts. But anyway, so yesterday in St. Paul, ICE conducted a targeted operation of 2 convicted S offenders. One of the criminal targets had convictions for S with a minor and S assault. The other target had convictions for S assault with penetration in the 1st degree, domestic violence, and violating a protective order. Both also have convictions for failure to register as S offenders. Wait a minute, I thought what's her name, sister-in-law said he wasn't convicted for anything, was never arrested, never had it. It's almost as if either she's outright lying or she never knew the true story. She's probably, I mean, if the latter's true, she's probably still in the process of picking her jaw up off the floor. They both have final orders of removal from an immigration judge. Oh, so he's not an American citizen, apparently. The U.S. Oh, here we go. So the U.S. citizen lives with these 2 convicted S offenders at the site of the operation. Yeah, see, that's why I should be reading first before giving my commentary on it. The individual refused to be fingerprinted or facially ID'd. He matched the description of the targets. As with any law enforcement agency, it is standard protocol to hold all the individuals in a house of an operation for safety of the public and law enforcement. Both of these S predators remain at large in St. Paul. We will be providing the public with photos and descriptors to help us locate and apprehend these public safety threats. Well, if you're living with a couple of S offenders and illegal immigrants and And if you look even somewhat similar to those individuals that, I mean, it's not even federal agents. It could be local law enforcement. Even if you vaguely match a description, they're fully within in the confines of the law to ID you or full on detain you. I mean, often they can do that. If they suspect you of committing a crime, even if you somewhat vaguely look like an individual they're going after, yeah, they do have that authority to hold you against your will until they properly identify you. I mean, look, it's happened to me before. I mean, not in this extent. I mean, I wasn't stopped by ICE agents. I was stopped by my local sheriff's office. Believe it or not, had a freaking helicopter following me around because I was on a trail that's nearby where I live, and there was a gas station that was robbed about 2 miles away, and the suspect escaped on a bicycle right on the trail, and I was 2 miles up. I had a tank top wife beater on. The guy that took off on a bike, same thing. Apparently he had similar hair color that I had. So helicopter started circling me. I walked into my house, and then like 2 minutes later, there was like 5-6 sheriff's cars that pulled up, and they were knocking on my door, and I came out. As soon as I came inside, I changed my shirt because when I go out on the trail, I work out, and it was, when was that? Like June. And I live in the middle of Florida, so it was brutally hot outside, soaked in sweat. So I changed my shirt when I came in, and they were like, what? Were you wearing a different shirt when you went in? Yeah, I just changed it. Well, why'd you change it? Why do you look so nervous? Like, they were asking me those questions. And I gave them my ID, and they said they'll be right back. And they, long story short, they shared an image of my ID with the clerk down the street at the gas station. She said it wasn't me. And then they said, have a nice day. And that was that. Pretty wild situation, completely out of the blue. Yeah, that was definitely a memorable experience. I've never had a sheriff's helicopter literally circling around, because I obviously noticed it. It's kind of hard not to notice when you got a helicopter circling around right above you. Fortunately, I'm not a paranoid person, but still, that was kind of wild. All right, moving on. Homeland Security, 5 hours ago. S predators remain at large in St. Paul, Minnesota, which of course, the likes of Governor Walz and probably Mayor Jacob Frey are protecting individuals like these people because they're not allowing ICE to go pick these people up once they get arrested. They just release them out into the community. Anyway, so Loy Mawa, a criminal illegal alien from Laos, is wanted for S assault of a minor. Also R-word in kidnapping and domestic violence. Kong Ming Vang, a criminal illegal alien from Laos, is wanted for S assault, gang activity, and assault. Both have final orders of removal from an immigration judge. These two individuals are the definition of the worst of the worst. If you have seen either of them, help DHS law enforcement remove them from Minnesota's streets. And they're both wanted. Not seeing a number, so I don't know if they're offering any kind of reward, but at the very least, they're wanted. So yeah, I don't know. I think unless they're, look, I don't even know, because they are wanted for very egregious crimes. So I mean, I was about to say, well, maybe they're just not offering rewards for illegal immigrants who might have, committed some crimes. But yeah, I mean, that's about as bad as you can get as far as committing crimes. But anyway, so from Ed Krasenstein, he leans just a little bit on the left. The Trump administration is disgusting. Yesterday, ICE raided a home on St. Paul's East Side. Their target was Chong Lee Scott Thao, an elderly Hmong American man. He's a U.S. citizen with no criminal record, and so on and so forth. ICE drove him around for near... Oh, okay, so we already got it. It's the same thing. Basically the same thing that we already read with regard to old dude that lived with a couple of predators that didn't register and so on and so forth illegally here. So anyway, this is the footage of that, apparently. By the way, everything Ed Krasenstein posts, I take with a giant grain of salt, but obviously this is the right video because that's the guy. Do you notice how horrifically they're dragging him out of the building? Did you see that? Did you see it, like, how nasty that was? That they just, like, dragged him like crazy? These people are psychotic. All right. Well, I mean, I will say, to be fair, they could have at least put a freaking shirt on him. I mean, come on. He probably had a coat, like right next to the front door. They could have at least put a coat on him. Because, I mean, obviously, he wasn't carrying a weapon. At least it didn't appear that he was. I'm sure they at least gave him the blanket. But, look, nobody knows what happened inside the house. Maybe he was just completely refusing. He was stonewalling, being a big pain in the ass. even though they were looking for, they were there for very legitimate reasons. So, all right, so we'll move on. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, child predator wanted. Antonio Feliciano Guamin Paredes is a citizen of Ecuador. He's wanted for secretly filming an underage girl on multiple occasions and keeping the explicit videos of her on his device. He was last seen in Loja, Ecuador. So he's wanted. That giant ass picture, man. All right, there you go. That's a little better. 866 DHS 2 ICE. So what? He was last seen in Ecuador, so it's probably still in Ecuador unless they've got, like, good intel that he is actually here somewhere. But anyway, they're looking for him. Secretary Sean Duffy, this beautiful girl, Delilah Coleman, is left with life-altering injuries after a criminal illegal immigrant caused a wreck while operating a truck he should never have had a license to drive. California's weak leadership is failing Americans like Delilah every day. My prayers are with her and her family. And she was injured horrifically in a car accident. Not familiar with which one it was because there were several illegal immigrant involved CDL holding semi-drivers that got into nasty car accidents that involved deaths. So this is from Delilah Coleman. Believe it would be the mother, right? I think. Anyway, Eric Swalwell and Gavin Newsom should come spend a day with my daughter Delilah, who has life-altering injuries caused by an illegal immigrant trucker who should have never been given a driver's license, but were thanks to their failed leadership. They can see firsthand the impact of their horrific policies before suggesting we take away licenses from ICE officers. And they reposted after Secretary Sean Duffy posted this. Eric Swalwell and Gavin Newsom are cut from the same cloth. Both would go to any length to protect illegal immigrants over American citizens. First, Newsom refuses to revoke over 17,000 commercial trucking licenses issued illegally to foreign drivers. Now Swalwell wants to strip ICE agents of their driver's licenses to prevent them from doing their jobs. California's leadership puts Californians last once again. And that was posted yesterday, about 6:30. Then this is from the New York Post. Eric Swalwell vows to revoke ICE officers' driver's license, even as California give them to illegal immigrants. Isn't that hilarious? So he's not going to take away the licenses of illegal immigrants, which, by the way, like what percentage of illegal immigrants that were given a license by California also have insurance and they're obeying all the laws and even understand enough English to even understand the street signs? Probably not a whole lot of them, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the majority of them are insured. I somehow doubt it. All right, so moving on. From Attorney General Pamela Bondi, I have been in constant communication with AAG Dillon, and that is Harmeet Dillon, who is the assistant, the assistant attorney for the Justice Department. I can't remember exactly what her role is. I think she's under the Civil Rights Division. It's something like that. But yeah, she's a higher up in the DHS. Or the DOJ, my bad, the Department of Justice. Anyway, so AG Pam Bondi has been in constant communication with AAG Dillon today over these events, which the Justice Department is investigating at my direction. Any violation of federal law will be prosecuted. And Harmeet Dillon says the Civil Rights is investigating the Civil Rights Department in the DOJ. There you go, the Civil Rights Division. That is the division that she oversees. She's investigating the potential of violations of the Federal FACE Act by these people desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. Wow, dude. Oh, these people in trouble. All right, so this is from Culture War Report. Now, ICE protesters storm a church service in Minneapolis. Let's take a look at this. Justice for Renee! 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 Justice for Renee Good. She is the one that struck the ICE officer with her vehicle, causing internal bleeding into his abdomen. He spent time in the hospital. Department of Homeland Security confirmed that. And as she struck him with her vehicle, he fired at her. And, of course, he fatally injured her. And, that's, again, I think that falls into FAFO territory. That's why you don't hit federal agents with your vehicle, because they might shoot you. All right, considering and investigating other related crimes as well, FBI activated too. All right, so they're going to be going after possible other crimes that may have been committed related to this incident. And Let's check out Caroline Levitt. President Trump will not tolerate the intimidation and harassment of Christians in their sacred places of worship. The Department of Justice has launched a full investigation into the despicable incident that took place earlier today at a church in Minnesota. Of course, that was yesterday morning or Sunday morning on January the 18th. And this is from another one from Harvey Dillon, the civil rights. Actually, I think we already read that. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we already did that. I just caught it twice. And from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, agitators aren't just targeting our officers. Now they're targeting churches. They're going from hotel to hotel, church to church, hunting for federal law enforcement who are risking their lives to protect Americans. Tim Walz and Jacob Frey are responsible for whipping these mobs into a frenzy and then allowing them to run rampant. We won't be deterred. ICE isn't going anywhere. And, I mean, federal agents, they've descended into Minneapolis. There's over 2,000 of them in Minneapolis right now. Maybe even more than that by this point. I think President Trump said, or he signaled that he's going to be activating the National Guard in Minnesota, but we'll see where that goes. And this is Center for Baptist Leadership. Shocking footage from City's Church in Minneapolis this morning, an SBC church, where an anti-ICE mob stormed the service and disrupted their worship, alleging one of the church's lead pastors is an ICE agent. My God. I mean,
so you can see the
people
protesters here have gathered over here. They're in the middle of the church. So in the beginning of the church service, the pastor was speaking, and Nikema stood up and said her piece, and then the protesters surrounded her. But this is a clandestine mission. I think they found out one of, according to them, this is according to Operation Pull-Up, that one of the pastors here is a member of ICE. And so here we go.
You could talk to the lead pastor.
Yeah. So,
well, there you go. They're facing charges under the FACE Act, and you know what? I'll look that up real quick. Let's get some info on that. All right. So the FACE Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act of 1994. I'm not sure if this is exactly the one that they were referencing. Let me just take another look. I don't think it is because it's talking about medical something. So let me just take a look. Okay, well, it is the same act. So the FACE Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, 18 U.S.C. Section 248, includes a provision protecting places of religious worship in addition to reproductive health facilities. The short summary of the religious part, it makes it a federal crime to use force or a threat of force or physical obstruction to intentionally injure or intimidate or interfere or attempt to interfere with any person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise their First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, intentionally damage or destroy or attempt to the property of a place of religious worship. Not sure if they damaged any property, but they were definitely intimidating and interfering. This mirrors the protections for reproductive health services, but is grounded in safeguarding free exercise of religion. Violations carry criminal penalties, fines, imprisonment, escalating with severity or repeats, and allow civil remedies, injunctions, and damages. The law remains in effect as of January 2026, despite repeal efforts, which H.R. 589 in 2025, I wonder who proposed that, and shifts in enforcement priorities. The DOJ enforces it for both contexts, including recent investigations into interference at houses of worship. So there you go. It sounds like that the federal government's got a pretty strong case to charge them under the FACE Act. And let's roll on to the next post here. All right, so we got that one. So this is from RNC Research. Why haven't you condemned the far left anti-ICE mob that stormed a church in St. Paul during service? Is this what you stand for? And they're replying to Governor Tim Walz, who said, in the face of hatred, Dr. King inspired us to build a society filled with hope, kindness, and love for our neighbor. Together, we must continue to work to enact his vision of equal opportunity for all. And that was posted today at 10:31 a.m. I've noticed over the last week or so, Governor Tim Walz has been posting like very tame messages compared to what he had been posting in the weeks and months prior. Very, very hyperbolic, very fanning the flames of unrest in his posts that he's probably been posting that same level of rhetoric for probably years at this point. But it seems like the last week or so, I mean, if you go through his profile, it looks like he's been posting some pretty tame stuff in comparison. Just, I don't know if he's like, maybe his lawyers are like, you might want to tame things down. I don't know. But deeply disturbing, especially after reports of growing concerns about the conditions at this facility. An investigation must take place. That's pretty tame. Minnesota is more than what you see on TV. We're a state that believes in the dignity of all people. We feed our kids and so on. Decency, generosity, So you can kind of see what I mean. Stay safe and stay peaceful today. Our public safety team has the resources, coordination, and personnel on the ground to maintain public safety and respond if needed. Thanks to local law enforcement for keeping the peace. And anyway, that's pretty much about all he's been posted. But if you go back like a month or two ago, I mean, it's like night and day with the violent political rhetoric, the anti-law enforcement rhetoric that he's been posting about. So anyway, let's take a look at this. It's probably going to be the same. No, actually, it does look like a different video or different angle. I mean, like the pastor, he's like, I'm not even going to get on the phone. Like, there's no point in calling 911. They're not going to show up for us. You think that'd be the first thing you would do? In a house of worship, in God's house, of all places. Bunch of nihilists. Most likely. Dude, absolutely insane. All right, we'll move on to GOP. I guess we'll see where that goes. I'm sure they already said that they're investigating it. Harmeet Dillon and AG Pam Bondi. All right, so this is another post from Donald J. Trump from his True Social today. ICE, or was this yesterday? Yeah, okay, this was yesterday. So ICE is removing some of the most violent criminals in the world from our country and bring them back home where they belong. Why is Minnesota fighting this? Do they really want murderers and drug dealers to be ensconced in their community? The thugs that are protesting include many highly paid professional agitators and anarchists. Is this really what Minnesota wants? The crooked governor and Congresswoman Omar, who married her brother, don't mind because it keeps the focus of attention off the $18 billion plus fraud that has taken place in the state. Don't worry, we're on it. And I said just that on Saturday. I posted a video on Saturday covering a bunch of Democrats and what they've been saying like over the last day or so, just covering a whole different range of things. That's a hot topic currently, and that's exactly what I mentioned. That they're trying to steer the attention away from the rampant fraud that's going on. And yeah, so they're going to keep dialing up this anti-ICE drama just because of that, because they want the public's attention to look away from this, because this looks really bad on Democrats, especially with the midterms coming up. So I would say that hopefully, and I don't believe that Republicans have control over the process of the justice system, because they don't. At least nobody's supposed to who are in any political positions. But I mean, if indictments come down between now and the midterms, that's going to shake things up on the Democrat side. That's for sure. Like Governor Tim Walz, if he's criminally indicted. Of course, the fake news, mainstream media, they're going to do anything and everything they can do to completely and totally bury it. But anyway, so U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement, as usual, over the last couple of weeks, there's a lot of posts coming out of ICE that I have to cover because it's just relevant to what's going on right now. When local law enforcement and sanctuary state politicians refuse to cooperate with ICE in detaining the worst of the worst, the presence of federal law enforcement increases significantly. Let's take a look.
You know, Maria, you're right in the fact that it does change the mindset of the men and women of ICE. But that's why we have to provide them so much support. You know, you hear about the 3,000 federal officers and special agents.
Yeah, that's assaulting an officer. So whether they're
Agents right, deployed to Minneapolis.
I was gonna say they better run up on him because he just assaulted a bunch of officers.
The men and women that are out.
Technically, and look, it may not hold up in court. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But I mean, I would say legally speaking, the dude that just threw that tear gas back at him, let's say there were 12 agents that were standing there. He should be charged with 12 counts of assaulting federal agents. I mean, he should be facing a minimum of 12 felonies.
Trying to make those arrests.
Just for doing that.
Definitely change our tactics. Where we would go and have 5 to 6
They did get him.
Arrest team. Now you have to go with 10 to 15.
Oh man, he's got the pepper spray up and ready
to arrest a bad guy. In my 30 years of law enforcement, I never thought we would have to send law enforcement to protect law enforcement. But I don't think you'd see as many of the issues if political leaders were allowed their local and state law enforcement to work with us.
All right, well, I was blathering way too much, so I'll repost this if you want to take a look at this. There's a direct link to my profile down in the description, to my X profile. I don't think you have to be signed in to X if you're never on X, and if you're just curious to watch this video, it should be pretty easy to find it. Just click on that link. It should be up near the top of my profile, or you can just go to IceGov, and they posted it at 8:22 last night. And we'll head on to the next one. Senate Republicans, and this is switching from Minnesota just briefly to North Carolina. Whatley, North Carolina, quote, "My opponent, Roy Cooper, vetoed 2 different bills telling sheriffs that they have to honor ICE detainers and get criminal illegal aliens out of our country. Roy Cooper will always prioritize illegals over North Carolinians."
And Joe Biden let 15 million plus illegal immigrants into this country. And the Democrats right now are fighting harder to keep them here than they are to protect their American citizens. My opponent, Roy Cooper, vetoed 2 different bills telling sheriffs that they have to honor ICE detainers and get criminal illegal aliens out of our country. And what we see right now on the streets of Minnesota are a perfect example. Why are these people fighting so hard to keep violent criminals, rapists, pedophiles, murderers in the United States, in Minnesota? Why did Roy Cooper veto legislation and try to keep violent criminals in North Carolina? You have to ask those basic questions. Ultimately, the number one function of any government, whether it's federal government, state government, or local government, has to be protecting our citizens, and that starts with getting the criminals off of the streets in our communities. And
I don't know why he was looking down the whole time. That was kind of odd. Almost looked like he was reading something, but no, he was probably just looking at the monitor. That'd be my guess. But anyway, yeah, he's totally correct. And North Carolina is going to be interesting because now there's more registered Republicans than Democrats. And that just flipped like about 2 weeks ago, that the number of Republicans that are registered to vote surpassed Democrats for the first time in North Carolina history. So it's going to be an interesting midterm for North Carolina. As long as Dude keeps on message and, sounds like he's got a good chance. All right, Caroline Leavitt. God bless ICE and Geiger Capital. ICE officer to moronic female protester. Quote, "We are here to arrest a child S offender. You're honking and impeding our investigation while we're trying to arrest a child S offender. That's who you guys are protecting. Insane."
So you're reporting, we're here to arrest a child sex offender. And you guys are out here honking.
Oh, they're not. No, we're pressed.
That vehicle right there is honking and impeding our investigations while we're trying to arrest a child sex offender. That's who you guys are protecting.
They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They really don't care. As soon as dude in the truck drove off, guaranteed they were laughing about it. Look, like they don't care because those people probably don't even have kids. They don't care. They abort their kids. They don't have kids. I mean, not some of them, I'm sure do. Look, a lot of progressives, of course, they have kids. I'm not saying that none of them do, but a lot of them they tend to not have kids, and they go through great lengths to not have kids. And over on the left, they're trying to demonize the word pedo. They're trying to say that that's inhumane to call them that. You have to call them minor attracted persons. They're called MAPs. They're not called pedos. They're called MAPs because they love who they love. I mean, I'm not making that shit up. They absolutely say that. All right, to Homeland Security. Once again, the media is lying for clicks and deceptively pushing clips to demonize our brave law enforcement. U.S. Border Patrol was conducting immigration enforcement operations in a public access parking lot when several agitators exited their homes and began yelling at law enforcement in Spanish. One agent who was fluent in Spanish recognized one individual's accent as being from Mexico. During questioning, the individual at first lied about where he was born, claiming Minnesota. When asked for proof and a second time about where he was born, the individual refused and then changed his answer to Mexico. Lying to a federal agent is a crime. Given this inconsistencies in his story and refusal to provide documents, agents briefly detained him. Records check revealed he was a naturalized U.S. citizen and he was immediately released. Our agents acted appropriate and with a high amount of professionalism despite having several agitators yelling at them. Any claim from him or the media that agents racially profiled is categorically false. A person's immigration status makes them a target for enforcement, not their skin color, race, or ethnicity. Law enforcement uses reasonable suspicion to make arrests as allowed under the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The Supreme Court has already vindicated us on this question. And this is from Jesus freaking Congress. In Columbia Heights, Minnesota, ICE agents are going door to door and targeting people based on how they sound, demanding proof of citizenship, and human trafficking them when they refuse to comply with unlawful orders. In the video, a man is standing by a garage on private property. ICE agents approach him and demand identification. The man correctly states he does not have to show ID. He's not suspected of a crime. He is on private property and the agents have no warrant. He then asks why he is required to provide documentation. An agent then says the quiet part out loud, because of your accent. The man points out the obvious. You have an accent too. The agent then asks, where were you born? The man says, where were you born? At that point, the agent escalates. He orders, put your hands behind your back, then physically grabs the man, shoves him against the garage, and restrains him without a warrant, without probable cause, and without reasonable suspicion of a crime, even knowing who he is. Another agent steps directly in front of the camera to obstruct recording, while another joins in and assaulting the man on private property, yada, yada, yada. This is really long, but if you want to read the rest of it, I'll pause it, or you pause the video, read it right here, 3, 2, 1, and then got a little bit more right there. And you know what? I'll repost this as well if you want to take a look at that. But they did share a video, so take a look at that. Let me repost. All right, here we go. Let's check this out.
You are required to.
Where is safe?
Look, sir, you're going to do this the easy way, or are we going to take you in?
You cannot take me in.
Yes,
I'm
I
in my
can.
private.
Yes, I can.
Do
you have documentation?
I do have my documentation.
Can you present it to me,
Why
please?
are you asking me for my paperwork?
Because of your accent.
I still, you have an accent too.
Where were you born, sir?
Where were you born at?
Put your hands behind your back.
You heard her. She works for the government. Or in the post office. Probably in the post office. She got top security clearance up there in that post office. All right, so that happened. And I'm sure it's probably a fairly common thing going on. Well, you know, don't agitate ICE agents. Not saying that they should be going door to door and, you know, not that they were. I'm sure they were just out wherever they were. A dude was looking for an FAFO moment or some viral moment. And anyway, so another one from ICE. Yesterday, federal law enforcement secured the Whipple building as 200 agitators rallied against ICE. 2 agitators were arrested after assaulting officers and repeatedly refusing orders to stay out of traffic. Reminder, if you assault federal law enforcement, you will face the consequences like these 2 agitators. And both of them were arrested and they went to jail. And there you go. Another FAFO moment. And Rapid Response 47, Mayor Frey says there won't be calm in Minneapolis until ICE leaves. The Trump administration is not going to surrender to the radical left and let Minneapolis get back to rampant fraud, theft, and sanctuary for criminals. And that's absolutely the way it should be. So let's take a look at this from CNN.
These ICE agents leave the city, I'm telling you, you're going to have calm in Minneapolis, and you will continue to see the great comeback that we had been experiencing. Let us get back to that comeback. Let us live in peace. Let us
Look, dude, they already pretty much lost this battle anyway, because they've already deported, they've already apprehended enough people to effectively take away a congressional seat from Minnesota. And they're just going to continue to apprehend more and more of them, which is going to make that extra congressional seat just that much more difficult to achieve, because that's what this is all about.
Businesses that are open and daycares where you don't need to escort staff to
Broad
and from.
daycares.
Let us live in a place where, you know, I mean, look, in Minneapolis, we'll stand up. If we have to sled down ice hills to get to a protest, we'll do that. If we've got to make sure that people are escorted to the grocery store, you know, we'll do that. But truthfully, we want to get back to a place where we can just love on our city, do our daily activities, just like any other town in America.
Look, all I got to say is that anybody who voted in the 2024 election, you better get your ass out there and freaking vote. Because don't forget, the popular majority voted for Trump. And Trump's number one thing that he ran on was immigration, illegal immigration, securing the border, getting all the illegal criminals out. And he won the popular majority as a result of that. So there's really no reason why that Republicans can't retain the House and the Senate during the midterm, unless they just appear to just be spineless, as they often do, and they're not doing enough to really push the America First agenda forward and what have you. The SAVE Act, that would certainly be a good place to start. All right, the White House. Minnesota sanctuary politicians have released nearly 470 criminal illegal aliens back into American communities since President Trump took office. ICE working every single day to remove the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens from terrorizing their state. And it looks like Hin Quoc Thai, a criminal illegal alien from Vietnam, convicted of murder. And this guy, Marshall Islands, 24 convictions, including assault causing bodily injury, domestic abuse, public nudity, theft, interference with official acts, public intoxication, trespassing. And let's see, the next one, Guatemala, convicted of assault with intent to inflict serious injury and possession of drugs, and previously charged with aggravated battery. And Cuba, convicted of larceny, forgery, identity theft, possession of tools for forgery, counterfeiting, transportation of tools for forgery and counterfeiting. Venezuela, distributing 5 kilograms or more of cocaine while on board a vessel. And let's see, from Guatemala, convicted of domestic violence. And let's see, Honduras, 3 counts of driving under the influence of liquor, previously charged with a conspiracy to commit robbery with a deadly weapon, kidnapping, robbery with a dangerous weapon, carrying a concealed gun, possession of a stolen firearm, and resisting a public officer. I mean, like, how many of these people were receiving government benefits, or probably still are? Criminally illegal from Mexico, convicted of fraud. Romania, charged with grand theft and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And, of course, they have more from DHS.gov, which I won't read into it because there's a lot of other stuff to get through, but this will be down below in the description. DHS.gov/news/2026/1/16, so on and so forth. All right, then we'll head on to the next. Homeland Security. We are calling on Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Frey to stop releasing criminal illegal aliens from Minnesota's jails to perpetuate their crimes. ICE has more than 1,360 arrest detainers for the criminal illegal aliens in their custody. Honor them today. It is common sense. Criminal illegal aliens should not be released back onto our streets to terrorize more innocent Americans.
Time and time again, I mean, we're talking about throughout the year, Bill, that our ICE officers have lodged detainers. Those detainers have not been honored. There's a very easy solution to that, and it's to allow our federal law enforcement, our ICE and CBP officers, to work with the state and local officers on the ground. That's what the state and local law enforcement officers want to be doing, is enforcing the rule of law. But if you look at who is in those jails, currently sitting in those jails, Bill, 1,370 criminal illegal aliens in Minneapolis' custody. Murderers, rapists, child pedophiles, those people should serve their time and then they should be turned over to ICE. We have not seen that. We've seen no cooperation. We have not been allowed or have those detainers be honored. That is exactly what we're asking for today. Mayor Walz and, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey should come out today and agree to that. They should also agree to allowing their local law enforcement officers to give our law enforcement officers backup. That way, when our officers are being impeded, they're being obstructed, or they're being assaulted, we don't see public safety threats and crises like we've seen the last few days.
Well, and unfortunately, there's been a lot of blackpilling going on, no doubt. I mean, it looks really bleak for the future of the country, and it's hard to believe that the majority of people in these districts are just okay with this, with protecting criminal illegals and just letting them out onto the streets, just letting them just go out and just wreak whatever havoc that they're doing out in the community. It's really hard to believe, and maybe not. I mean, maybe there's a lot of election interference, a lot of fraud going on in the election system, and maybe they aren't in the majority, and it just seems that they are because they're just keep meddling with elections. But that's just my own personal opinion. I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm not saying that is happening or that it's not happening. I'm just saying that it's out there. I'm not the only one talking about that. All right, so this comes from FBI Rapid Response, and I just recently added this account to my list. And I think they've been out. This account was created at least maybe a couple of weeks, maybe actually a couple of months ago. So I finally got around to adding that to my list. So anyway, FBI Rapid Response, they're talking about how this post is false, and this is from Peter Baker. An FBI agent conducted an initial review of the Renee Good killing and determined sufficient grounds existed to open a civil rights probe into the actions of the ICE officer who shot her. Justice Department says no investigation is warranted. And actually, hold on, let me see if that's, so that's from the Washington Post. Not really going to get into the Washington Post, but it's here. Actually, it's a paywall anyway, so it's not going to let me It's not going to let me read it regardless, but as I said before, I'll link it. If you want to take a look at that, if you happen to be giving the Washington Post money every month, then you can feel free to read that. It'll be below. So anyway, the response from FBI, Rapid Response, says this is false. The decisions referenced here were not made by the FBI. The FBI still continues to pursue evidence in this case with our federal partners investigating the shooting incident, as well as the ongoing violent criminal actors and their funding sources. The facts are the initiator, and the facts do not support civil rights investigation. There you go. Secretary Kristi Noem, Peace and Public Safety in Minneapolis. We have arrested over 10,000 criminal illegal aliens who were killing Americans, hurting children, and raining terror in Minneapolis because Tim Walz and Jacob Frey refused to protect their own people and instead protect criminals. In the last 6 weeks, our brave DHS law enforcement have arrested 3,000 criminal illegal aliens, including vicious murderers, R-worders, child pedos, and incredibly dangerous individuals. A huge victory for public safety. There is massive fraud in Minneapolis, at least $19 billion, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Which, put it into other context, $19,000 million. That is not a small amount of money, man. I mean, that's actually more than the operating budget deficit of the entire state of California right now. And anyway, our Homeland Security investigators are on the ground in Minneapolis conducting wide-scale investigations to get justice for the American people who have been robbed blind. Make America safe again. And this is also from Secretary Kristi Noem, a criminal illegal alien from Somalia who's been convicted of homicide. And I mean, look, they just keep sharing this, just more and more people that they just keep arresting. And I'm sure that this was just after, over the last few days, probably. Let's see, from, that would be El Salvador. MS-13 is from El Salvador. He's been convicted of homicide, drug trafficking, selling amphetamines, also arrested for aggravated homicide in El Salvador. From Laos, homicide, vehicle theft, possession of stolen property, and assault. Also arson. Dude's an arsonist. Criminal illegal from Laos. Final order of removal way back in 2004. Convicted of strong arm R-word of a 12-year-old girl, kidnapping a child with intent to assault her, and vehicle theft. That's who they're protecting. They're protecting these people. It's insane. Criminal illegal from Laos. Final order of removal back in 2006. Been convicted of assault and sodomy of a girl under the age of 13 and procuring a child for prostitution. Another one, Mexico, convicted of assault against a child, assault, carnal abuse, and 4 DUIs. 4. Convicted of strong arm aggravated assault against a family member, aggravated assault with a weapon, an additional S offense of domestic violence involving strangulation. And look, it just goes on and on, man. Like, look, just on and on, more and more and more of these people that are being removed from Minnesota. And they're protecting all of them. I mean, look at this, dude. She posted like 50 of these. I'm just going to keep scrolling until I find the bottom. I mean, good grief. This is insane. All right, hold on. Let me do it this way. Oh, wait, no, it's not going to let me do that. All right, whatever. I'll just do it this way then. I mean, look, there's so many that my feet can't even keep up with it. All right, yeah, it looks like we finally got to the bottom. But that is insane, man. Just all of these people that they have recently arrested, all of them just violent criminals, just absolute, just the worst kind of just sick, twisted child predators, at least some of them, a number of them. And yeah, that's who they want to remain in their community. And like I said, probably because a lot of these agitators, a lot of these rioters, these activists, they don't have kids of their own, so they honestly don't give a shit. They really don't care. Secretary Kristi Noem, Americans are safer with each arrest of a criminal illegal alien. Since President Trump came back into office, over 2.6 million illegal aliens have left the country. This includes the more than 670,000 deportations and 2 million self-deportations. President Trump is restoring law and order.
Well, I think every day we get a murderer off the streets of Minneapolis, the public is safer. And President Trump is keeping his promise to the American people. And we literally have arrested and detained thousands of illegal criminals in Minnesota since President Trump came back into the White House. And I've never met a family that ever said, oh, I wish you would have left that rapist free. I wish you would have left that murderer on the streets. So we're just so thankful that we have a president that's upholding the law and is determined to make sure that the laws are applied equally to everyone.
Look, all I got to say is that anybody living in Minnesota who's not okay with this, they better get their ass out there and vote. I mean, you got to get out there and just vote. Whoever it is that's running in your district, you got to get them out. And if they're running unopposed, then you better find somebody in your community who can run against them, and just get them the hell out of office. And I bet that if every person who's against what's going on with like protecting the illegal immigrants and letting them stay in the community and the system that's rife with fraud in Minnesota, if they all voted, it would probably be this absolute just blowout of a majority against whoever's running for re-election, whether if it's Ilhan Omar or whoever the hell else is running in those districts. All right, so I think we got that one. All right, this one's from Rapid Response. 70% from Secretary Noem, by the way. 70% of the illegals detained by ICE have been convicted of or charged with a crime. Margaret Brennan, it's not 70%. Secretary Noem, it absolutely is. Is Margaret Brennan stupid, or does she just really hate facts?
What's the breakdown of the percentage of those who you have in custody who have actually committed a criminal offense versus just the civil infraction?
Every single
Well, dude, a civil infraction, them coming into the country illegally, is still a fucking crime.
individual has committed a crime, but 70% of them have committed or have charges against them on violent crimes and crimes that they are charged with or have been convicted of that have come from other countries.
Where's the gaslighting?
They're illegally, first of all, and then they have committed a criminal act while they've been here or in their home countries as well.
It's not 70%.
Woo!
Yes, it
gaslighting.
is.
That's
it
Mills.
absolutely is.
70% of everyone
you
you
guys
have
keep
detained
changing your percentage. You pick and choose what numbers you think work, but that is the
Your
fact.
gaslighting
is that 70%
stinks.
of the people that we have detained have charges against them or have been convicted of charges, and they need to be brought to
For
justice.
violent
We're going to
crimes.
keep doing that no matter how much you guys keep lying and don't tell the public the truth. It absolutely is that these law enforcement officers are out there every day doing the work to protect the American people, and they will keep doing that because they believe in enforcing the law, which is exactly what President Trump has charged them with.
Yeah, and where did a lot of these people come from? Well, they came from the prison systems all across Latin America because they emptied them. And the same with the insane asylums. Just like Fidel Castro did back in 1980. Same thing. Back in Cuba. They flooded Miami. All right, so Homeland Security, the American people, the law, the common sense are on our side, and we will not stop until law and order is restored after Biden's open border chaos flooded our country with the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. Don't forget Kamala Harris. She was the border czar. DHS will continue to deliver on the mandate of the American people to make America safe again.
But we won't stop until we are sure that all the dangerous people are picked up, brought to justice, and then deported back to their home countries.
Or a date?
We wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be in this situation if Joe Biden hadn't allowed our open border policies to
100%.
be in place and allowed up to 20 million people unvetted into this country. We have no idea.
Yeah, and the mainstream news, they tried so hard to keep that under the rug. Throughout the whole Biden administration, they did. And there was just so much nonsense going on, especially coming out of the COVID era. There's just so much to cover that conservative media outlets, like, they stayed on it. But they didn't illustrate just the sheer number, the millions and millions, unless you just look at the numbers. But it's hard to visualize 300,000 people crossing our border on a monthly basis. It's an unfathomable number.
How many dangerous people are here? When you have millions of people coming in that are terrorists, suspected terrorists, criminals, come from countries in the mass migration that the Biden administration facilitated, I can't tell the people of Minnesota exactly how many dangerous criminals they have. I do know that they're extremely grateful every time we get a pedophile off the street. We arrested an individual this week that was raping children. I think those parents in Minnesota can sleep better at night knowing that that person isn't free.
Yeah, and you know what? Those parents, they better be getting their asses out there and voting too, doing anything and everything they can, or at least be an advocate against all this sanctuary city nonsense that's going on. And even if none of them are criminals that came over illegally, only the crime of crossing into the United States illegally is still something that should absolutely be handled, and they should all be deported regardless. But still, a lot of them were criminals, and I think they should stay on that message because they are going after them first and foremost. They're trying to get rid of all the worst criminals above and beyond, and once they get rid of all those criminals, then they can start focusing on everybody else who came in illegally. All right, so Homeland Security, order versus anarchy. Minnesota's sanctuary policies put Americans at risk. Despite the efforts of Walz and Frey, DHS continues to push forward, removing criminals from our streets and bringing safety back into our communities. Take a look at this.
This is Micah Bach, Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security. This week in Minneapolis, federal agents pressed forward with critical operations to arrest dangerous criminal illegal aliens and uncover the largest fraud scandal in American history.
The Leering Center.
I want to take a moment to explain why DHS is in Minneapolis in the first place. What brought federal agents away from the warmth and safety
Crime,
of their families
fraud,
and into Minnesota?
bullshit.
The answer is simple. The sanctuary policies of Minneapolis and Minnesota have created an existential threat to the American citizens living in these communities. Here's how. It all starts with decisions around if state law enforcement will, enforce the law.
Well, and you know what? I'm going to pay attention when the midterms come out, when the results come out with those districts specifically in Minneapolis, and just to see by what margin did they win. Like Ilhan Omar, did she win by like 70 to 30 or 80 to 20? And whoever else is running in those districts, I'm just curious to know by how wide of a margin that they're going to end up winning. Because if they win by that wide of a margin, I mean, speaking from an outsider who doesn't live in Minnesota, you're almost at the point where you just throw up your hands and like, well, fuck, man, they voted for it. I guess that's what they want. I mean, not to say that we should just remove all the federal agents and just let it happen. But, it's hard to have sympathy for a community where they just keep voting for these policies to continue.
When illegal aliens commit crimes, federal law enforcement will issue what's called a detainer to state and local law enforcement, asking for them to be detained until they can be taken into federal custody. This is the ideal scenario. Criminals stay safely behind bars, agents are able to easily apprehend them, and communities are free to walk the streets without fear of attack from criminal illegal aliens. The crisis in Minnesota is a direct result of Governor Walz and leaders in Minneapolis intentionally deciding to take these known criminals who have violated the law and release them back into the streets. Now, federal agents must undertake a dangerous task: find, apprehend, detain, and deport criminals who had already been under lock and key. This is how society crumbles. When state leaders choose to defy federal law, release criminals into their communities, and then urge violent mobs to riot while federal law enforcement works to arrest the criminals that the state
let
leaders
out
released.
Uh-huh.
In Minnesota, Walz's revolving door of justice has released nearly 470 violent criminal illegal aliens back onto Minnesota streets since President Trump took office. These are murderers, rapists, child sex abusers, and more. These sanctuary politicians are making communities volatile. They're refusing to hand over criminals to ICE, and they are putting Americans at risk. On Wednesday evening, during a routine traffic stop of a Venezuelan national illegally in the country, the suspect resisted arrest, fled, crashed his vehicle, and then assaulted a federal officer who was working to safely arrest him. This criminal illegal alien was then joined by 2 accomplices, also illegal aliens, who swarmed our officer with a snow shovel and broom handle, beating him mercilessly. Ambushed 3-on-1 and fearing for his life, the federal officer fired a defensive shot, striking an assailant in the leg. If Walz and Frey truly believed in protecting Minnesotans, they would be cooperating with ICE, honoring detainers, and keeping these threats locked up or removed. We wouldn't see federal agents surging into Minneapolis, putting their lives on the line in these volatile situations like this. Sanctuary policies don't make communities safer. They create the very conditions for escalation and endanger everyone, including the dedicated men and women of federal law enforcement who are left to clean up the mess. Americans deserve better. Law and order starts with leaders who put citizens first, not criminals. One thing is abundantly clear. This is a struggle of order versus anarchy. Law and order will prevail over the forces of chaos seeking to empower criminals over citizens. We'll see you next week.
All right, there you go. This week at the Department of Homeland Security. And speaking of Minnesota, been on topic for it or on it for a while. I looked up, what was that, over the weekend. I was just looking at other issues that are going on in Minnesota, and electricity is a big problem that they're facing with regard to costs. Electricity it's increasing fast in Minnesota, and it's expected to keep rising in cost for individual homes. in Minnesota, because Minnesota has a state law that they must be carbon neutral by 2040. Yeah, surprise, surprise. That's happening in a lot of blue states. And it's expected to cost the whole state to become 100% carbon free over $1 trillion in total. And the state, at least, especially during the Biden administration, they were heavily relying on the federal government to subsidize a lot of that money. Well, it looks like in the short term, they're not going to keep getting that level of funding from the federal government. So if the citizens of Minnesota have to pay for it, that would average to $200,000 for every man, woman, and child living in Minnesota. And Minnesota, they're pretty much at their limit as far as how much they can tax people in Minnesota. Apparently, that's really fueling tensions in everyday working families in Minnesota. So they know that they can't keep increasing taxes to pay for this carbon neutral endeavor. So they're going to push it into the electrical costs. So their electric bills are going to have to keep continuing to rise in order to pay for this whole carbon neutral initiative for 2040. But I don't know, maybe I'll do a video on that over the weekend or something. I mean, that's during the week. That's not really what I focus on. I just focus on what's going on a daily basis in the federal machine. All right, so U.S. DOT rapid response from 12 hours ago. The feds say 54% of immigrant truck driver licenses in North Carolina are illegal, and that ain't good. So this is happening in North Carolina. We already know that it's going on in California, and I think Pennsylvania was another one. And so there's a number of states like where they think that the majority of commercial driver's licenses have been issued illegally. So the Trump administration's crackdown on foreign commercial drivers is now reaching far beyond California's borders. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean B. Duffy announced that more than half of North Carolina's commercial truck licenses issued to immigrant drivers were unlawfully granted, triggering a federal threat to pull millions in funding unless the state takes immediate corrective action. Well, if that's the case, I think they did not frame that correctly then, because, okay, no, I guess they did. Feds say 54% of immigrant truck driver licenses are illegal. Okay, so never mind. I might have misread that in the post. All right, so let's see. Following a national audit of state truck licensing systems, the Transportation Department has already cracked down on several states, threatening to withhold millions in federal funds from California, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and New York. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA, reports that 54% of the non-domiciled commercial driver's licenses reviewed in North Carolina were issued in violation of federal rules. A federal audit revealed that many of these licenses carried expiration dates extending well past the driver's documented legal presence in the U.S., mirroring a problem previously uncovered in California that affected thousands of immigrant truckers, a deepening licensing dispute. In addition, many licenses are claimed to have been issued to drivers ineligible to hold a non-domiciled commercial driver's license, although the government hasn't explained exactly why and how this happened. CDLs have also been issued to drivers before North Carolina verified if the individual is lawfully allowed in the U.S. The federal government is now threatening to withhold $50 million in funding unless the state halts all new non-domiciled CDL issuances and performs a full compliance review. That includes identifying every active license that fails to meet FMCSA standards. FMCSA Administrator Derek D. Bars described the level of noncompliance as egregious. Undersecretary Duffy will not hesitate to hold states accountable and protect the American people, Barr said. Revocations, audits, and federal pressure. Officials have also directed North Carolina to revoke and reissue all non-compliant licenses for immigrant drivers who do not meet federal criteria. In parallel, the state must conduct a full internal audit to identify the procedural or system-level failures that led to the current situation. Quote, North Carolina's failure to follow the rules isn't just shameful, it's dangerous, Duffy explained. I'm calling on state leadership to immediately remove these dangerous drivers from our roads and clean up their system. President Trump and I are committed to keeping you and your family safe on our roads. As we've come to expect, there's quite a lot of fear-mongering, and that statement is obviously not all the drivers in question can be dangerous. These actions follow a wider federal audit of state truck licensing systems, with the DOT already threatening to withhold millions in funding from California, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and New York. And yeah, it just, and I don't think that California's playing ball. At first, they said they were going to do just that. Same with Colorado. I think Colorado was the other one that I was thinking of, that they said that they were going to play ball with the federal government and revoke those licenses, but apparently they haven't done it yet. So, but as far as I understand, the federal government does have the authority to revoke the entire state's ability to issue commercial driver's licenses. And Secretary Duffy has been tossing that idea around. So it sounds like they might have to end up pulling the trigger on that. All right, Rapid Response 47. President Trump's True Social. There is $19 billion in Minnesota Somalia fraud. Fake Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a constant complainer who hates the USA, knows everything there is to know. She should be in jail or even a worse punishment, sent back to Somalia, considered one of the absolutely worst countries in the world. She could help to make Somalia great again. Yeah, she probably could. And U.S. Embassy in Nicaragua arresting Nicaraguans for giving like to social media posts shows just how paranoid the illegitimate Murillo and Ortega regime has become. We demand the unconditional release of all political prisoners without exceptions, without house arrest, without new detentions. Freedom means putting an end to the regime's cycle of repression. And this is from Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs. Detaining Nicaraguans for liking posts online shows how paranoid the illegitimate Murillo and Ortega regime is. Maybe that's Murillo. We demand the unconditional release of all political prisoners. No exceptions, no house arrests, no new arrests. Freedom means ending the regime cycle of repression. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic. FBI Director Kash Patel. This FBI shutdown redundant divisions, moved 1,500 roles out of Washington and into the field, canceled an expensive vehicle fleet for a cheaper option, canceled a new headquarters building project that would have cost the taxpayers billions, consolidated nationwide leases, slashed $30 million a year in telecom bills, and more. Total so far, we've saved $316 million of taxpayer funding in hard dollars and saved over $1.2 billion in contract ceiling savings, and there's more to come. We're putting the money back in the field to better serve the American people, saving taxpayers billions and taking the focus off expensive bureaucracy while expanding investigative capacity. $316 million cost cut, $1.2 billion in contracts have been slashed in the FBI. And from the DEA HQ, there's a new milestone for making DC safe again. They've crossed over the 9,000 mark for total arrests. 9,013 total arrests in DC. United Law Enforcement, safer neighborhoods, fewer drugs on our streets. DEA will never stop protecting the people of Washington, DC. Hashtag make DC safe again. And they tagged in the Justice Department and the White House. Also, 913 illegal guns have been seized since they started operations back, I think it was in August. I think it was like early August when they started that. And FBI Most Wanted. The FBI offers a reward of up to $50,000 for info leading to the arrest of Josephine Sunshine Overraker. On January 19th of 2006, a federal grand jury in Eugene, Oregon indicted her on multiple charges related to her alleged role in a domestic terrorism cell. 2006. I don't know if that's a typo or not. I have a feeling that might be a typo. I think they meant to say 2026. I somehow doubt that was that long ago. But yeah, anyway, if that's the case, FBI Most Wanted, you might want to have a second look at what you're typing and posting. But here, let's take a look at this. I'm sure it'll probably, or maybe not. Maybe this is just the poster. Let's take a look and see. $50,000 reward. Fluent in Spanish. No, see, it says right here. Now in January, hold on. So maybe it's because it was on this day, because today's January 19th. Maybe that's why that they're putting this back out into the public, because it was on this day type of situation. But yeah, it says on January 19th, 2006. So I'll take them at their word. Federal grand jury in Eugene, Oregon indicted Josephine Sunshine Overraker on multiple charges related to her alleged role in a domestic terrorism cell. Overraker was charged with 2 conspiracy violations related to 17 incidents, 5 counts of arson, 1 count of attempted arson, and 1 count of destruction of an energy facility. These crimes occurred in Oregon, Washington, Colorado, California, and Wyoming, and date back to 1996. Many of the crimes she's accused of participating in were claimed to be committed by the Earth Liberation Front, or ELF, or the Animal Liberation Front, ALF. Should be considered an escape risk. So if you have any information, contact the local FBI office or the nearest American embassy or consulate. So I take it they think she might be out of the country. Well, her place of birth was Canada, so she's probably back up in Canada. But anyway, there's some of the images from back in the day. Yeah, I mean, those are all old images. You can just tell by her hairstyle. That was a long time ago. Definitely not 2026. All right, and we'll head on to the next thing. I think I got another one from the FBI. Yeah, here we go from Kash Patel. Breaking, another FBI 10 most wanted fugitive has been captured. Alejandro Rosales Castillo, a 10 most wanted fugitive since 2017, was arrested in Mexico on Friday. He's been wanted on charges for the 2016 murder of his former coworker, 23-year-old Sandy Liley, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and will remain in custody pending extradition back to North Carolina. Incredible work, FBI Charlotte, and thank you to so many partners who delivered: the government of Mexico, Legat Mexico, the State Department, HSI, U.S. Secret Service, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police, and more. This is the 5th 10 most wanted fugitive captured under this FBI in 1 year since the beginning of 2025. More captures in 1 year than the entire previous 4 years combined. It's a credit to great investigative work and great leadership in this administration with President Trump and the Justice Department letting good cops be cops. Justice will be done. And he has been captured, Alejandro Rosales Castillo. And yeah, man, he's been up on that list since 2017, so he's been hiding very well, but not anymore. Kash Patel's FBI busted him. Well, actually, it was probably more in Mexico than anything, but I mean, obviously the FBI had a hand in it, and other partners. All right, Cyber and Specialist Operations Command. After 5 years of dedicated service protecting the Falkland Islands and the wider South Atlantic, HMS Forth has officially handed over to HMS Medway. And let's see, HMS Forth, that is the first class of the Batch 2 offshore patrol vessels built for the RN, proudly affiliated to Sterling, Go Forth and Conquer, from Great Britain, and HMS Medway. We are the HMS Medway Batch 2 River class offshore patrol vessel. I'm not sure why this came across my feed, but it did. HMS Forth departs after 5 years. That's crazy. Which, by the way, the Falkland Islands are off the coast of Argentina in the Atlantic Ocean, the South Atlantic. There's a whole brouhaha with the Falkland Islands back in the 80s between Argentina and Great Britain, both claiming ownership. There was like a long-term standoff. I don't know if this might have something to do with that, maybe. Yeah, there's the Falklands. All right, so that's that. Anyway, all right, well, let's move on to the White House. NATO has been telling Denmark for 20 years that you have to get the Russian threat away from Greenland. Let's see. Unfortunately, Denmark has been unable to do anything about it. Now it is time, and it will be done. President Donald J. Trump. I mean, he's pretty confident that they're going to hand over Greenland. I guess we'll just have to see. I don't know if it's going to be brought in for statehood. I doubt it. I mean, if anything, it would, I'm assuming, would be just, labeled as a U.S. territory. And from Pete Hexa, thank you, Mr. President. The Army-Navy game is one of our greatest American traditions, unmatched patriotism, courage, and honor. This incredible tradition is now at risk of being pushed aside by more college playoff games and big TV money. Not anymore. Under my administration, the second Saturday in December belongs to Army-Navy and only Army-Navy. I will soon sign a historic executive order securing an exclusive 4-hour broadcast window so this national event stands above commercial postseason games. No other game or team can violate this time slot. Wow, man. I mean, hey, I don't disagree with that. I don't watch sports. I don't care about sports. I mean, in my own personal opinion, I think sports is just a big waste of time. But, that is absolutely to each his own. I know there's a million different ways to push back against that statement. But anyway, so he goes on to say, on the field, they are rivals, but on the battlefield, they are America's unstoppable patriots, defending our country with tremendous strength and heart. We must protect the tradition and the players who protect us. Please let this serve as notice to all television network stations and outlets. God bless America and God bless our great Army-Navy game. President Donald J. Trump. And frankly, the NFL and the TV networks, this should have never been an issue to begin with. I mean, if the Army and the Navy, if they're playing a historic game every year, why not make that an exclusive event? I mean, it's ridiculous. But I don't know. Does anybody watch it? I'm sure they probably fill up the stadium. I don't know if it's a popular game that's watched every year, but after that executive order, it's gonna be, because there's a lot of people out there that like football. All right, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, air dominance on display. A U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor showcases unmatched maneuverability at the Avalon Air Show, reinforcing deterrence and allied assurance in the Indo-Pacific. This was in Australia. Wow, man, breaking the sound barrier, sonic boom. That is cool, man. It's very cool. It'd be nice if they showcase the F-22s where I live. I live near MacDill Air Force Base, and they have the air show every year. But look, I've only been to one of them, to be honest. But I don't think they ever show F-22s there. I could be wrong, but yeah, man, I would absolutely make a day out of that. It's a whole ordeal going to the air show because it's always free. So like hundreds of thousands of people show up to it. So like you have to make a whole day out of it. Like take hours to like find parking and find a way to get there. Like the only time I went, I had to park like 5 miles away, and we took a shuttle to get up there. But it was well worth it, man. That air show in MacDill was absolutely awesome. And it's actually, you know what? I actually forgot about this. The MacDill Air Force Base isn't holding its Tampa Bay Air Fest annually. Not now. They paused it in 2024. The most recent event was back in March of 24, and they're going to resume it in either 2027 or 2028. It's currently paused for the foreseeable future due to major construction for the new KC-46 Pegasus tanker aircraft, with the next one likely not until the year 27 or 28. So, I mean, that's a bummer. But yeah, it's one of the coolest air shows. As far as I understand, it's one of the best air shows in the country. But dude, if they show up with Raptors, I mean, dude, I'm there. Would love to see a Raptor in person. All right, so anyway, so MEF, the official Twitter account of II Marine Expeditionary Force, following retweets and so on. I believe that's how you pronounce that, right? I don't think maybe it's 2MEF. 2MEF? I don't know. I'm not in the military, so my apologies, no disrespect. I honestly don't know, but I am sharing it. So where land meets sea, amphibious operations allow Marines to project combat force from ship to shore. The integration of naval, air, and ground forces help support joint operations. And we'll take a look at this video.
Step.
There you go. Just a sneak peek. Just a quick little 28-second clip of just pure badassery, military straight out of the future, just doing the best that they do, fighting the good fight. All right, so RNC Research, disgraceful. Georgia Senator John Ossoff backs Mark Kelly's insurrectionist video urging military members to defy President Trump, despite no proof of a single illegal order. And this is from John Ossoff from yesterday. The administration's plot to silence Mark Kelly is a disgrace, but Mark will not be silenced. Thank you, Captain Mark Kelly.
Combat veteran, decorated naval aviator, astronaut, space shuttle commander, United States Senator representing the state of Arizona.
So what, dude? His credentials doesn't justify what he did. And there he is right there, Mark Kelly.
That's a pretty extraordinary record of service to the country.
So what? Does that mean that you should be completely just like absolutely and totally immune to the law altogether? No.
But what this administration has tried to do to this American hero over the last few months is a disgrace. Is a disgrace.
Why is he preaching to like dozens of people when
because
he could
Senator
have
Kelly
like filled up like a large venue of like thousands?
Stated a fundamental
makes you
principle
wonder.
enshrined in military law. As a sitting member of the United States Senate, and was threatened with prosecution before a military tribunal in order to silence him.
It ain't who he is, it's what he
In
did.
the United States of America. And let me tell you, that wasn't just an effort to silence a United States senator.
It's to silence everybody.
That was an effort to intimidate veterans across the country from speaking out and speaking your minds when they can threaten you in retirement for...
Well, you know, dude, has it occurred to you that maybe the people here don't know what the hell you're talking about? Maybe you should give us some context. Like, what happened? What is he being unfairly prosecuted regarding? Like, what did he do? Well, he posted that video, that video that went at least semi-viral. I think it was amplified a lot by the pushback that they got as a result. But it was him and like 5 other Democrats who served in in the military, and they said that anybody who's actively in the military can defy Trump's orders.
Dissenting against government policy. And it represents an even deeper threat.
And he got his
all
retirement
of our
benefits
civil
reduced
liberties.
as a result, and censured.
So I just want to thank
and maybe
this
facing,
man, and I hope we all will, for his
criminal
courage,
prosecution, maybe,
for his perseverance, and for continuing to speak truth to power, even when threatened by the authorities who want to silence him.
You notice how vague Democrats always are? They're always insanely vague. They never give you, like, get to the fucking point, dude. What the hell are you even talking about? They want to silence him because he said something. All right, Rapid Response 47. This is misleading. So what is misleading? Donald Trump has told countries that want to serve on his board of peace that they will have to pay $1 billion to be permanent members. Bloomberg has obtained the draft charter. It appears to suggest it. Look at that. See how the framing goes? It appears to suggest. So in other words, we're reading it in the way we want to read it, and we're just gonna report that accordingly. Trump himself would control the money, sources say. What sources? Well, anonymous sources. Yeah, awfully convenient. The charter would be considered unacceptable to most countries who could have potentially joined the board, sources say. Anonymous sources, probably, because they're not giving us the sources. Netanyahu has rejected the terms, sources say. Several nations strongly oppose the draft of Trump's charter and are working to collectively pushing back against the proposals. Again, anonymous sources said. They are concerned Trump is trying to build a rival to the United Nations. That's about more than Gaza, and that he would totally control. It means that despite Trump's advertising the Board of Peace, in fact, it does not have the support of key regional or global players. So anyway, Rapid Response 47 says this is misleading. There are no minimum membership fee to join the Board of Peace. This simply offers permanent membership to partner countries who demonstrate deep commitment to peace, security, and prosperity. And also, here's it got community noted. The tweet clearly states Donald Trump has told countries that want to serve on his Board of Peace that they will have to pay $1 billion to be permanent members. It doesn't mention membership fee to join at all. Not misleading at all. All right. Well, there you go. Rapid Response 47, very rare. I don't know if I've ever come across Rapid Response being community noted ever, but they got community noted. So, you know, like whenever something gets community noted, they usually bring like facts to back it up. So that's from the post from what's his name, which we already went through, but usually they usually link other information that backs up what they're saying. But yeah, I don't know. Visible to a small test group. But anyway, so we got to move on. U.S. Secret Service. Wherever the president goes, we are with him. Continuous protection always.
When the president travels internationally, the mission remains the same. Whether at home or abroad, the full scope of our nation's protective assets stands ready to ensure the highest level of protection.
Protecting the president and going after counterfeiting. All right, another one. Of course, we got another one. President Trump, he was hot this weekend on True Social. Everyone is asking about the auto pin. What was done is totally illegal, and anything signed that way is of no further force or effect. This person who worked the auto pin had no idea whether or not Biden approved of what he was doing. There was no order in writing, and it was an absolutely illegal act perpetrated by the radical left insurrectionists who illegally ran the Biden administration. Every one of them should be arrested for what they've done to our country. They didn't win the presidency, but when you think of it, neither did Joe Biden. The whole thing was rigged. There must be a price to pay, and it has got to be a big one. President DJT. And yeah, I'm assuming that he's probably most likely referencing all the pardons, Anthony Fauci and all these criminals that should absolutely be charged and convicted and sentenced to prison. But no, Joe Biden gave them all a pardon, including his own son, Hunter Biden. And that's why we don't hear anything with regard to Hunter Biden anymore. All right, the White House, the art of the deal. In just 1 year, President Donald J. Trump secured nearly $10 trillion with a T in private and foreign investment for America.
The art of the $1 trillion deal on display. President Trump wrapping up an historic Middle Eastern trip with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, all pledging massive investments into America.
A lot of big numbers coming back with the president. $600 billion in U.S. investment with Saudi Arabia, $1.2 trillion in economic deals with Qatar, and $200 billion in commercial deals with UAE.
That's insane how rich that country is.
Trump derangement syndrome is the truth, and they can't deny the truth that this trip has been an unbridled success for America.
Across the pond, there was
trillion.
a power summit of tech and finance titans at Chequers, the official country residence of UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He and President Trump today rolled out a new blockbuster $350 billion tech prosperity deal, as it's called.
Yeah,
he combined diplomacy with business. Trump really used the spotlight, which he's done.
Yeah, by the way, part of that tech deal is the United Kingdom securing. Oh man, I froze that at an awkward time. Well, that was not much better. Well, anyway, small modular nuclear reactors. The Great Britain, they're actually purchasing some of those units from the United States. The first site that's being built is currently being built, and it's in Tennessee, in eastern Tennessee. And they're going to be building these small modular nuclear reactors. I mention them all the time because I think they're fantastic if they work as intended. And I'm sure the technology is already proven out because they're building a manufacturing facility to produce these things, which once they completely construct a small modular nuclear reactor, they can load it onto a semi-truck and take it to a site where they can set it up, basically flip on the on switch, which is probably not that simple, but it'll essentially produce enough energy to power up to 300,000 homes. That's the equivalency. But most of these modular reactors are going to be powering data centers, AI centers, and even Great Britain, the UK. They also secured a purchase of a number of those, and they came to that agreement while President Trump visited the UK earlier last year.
And for 2 decades to be able to draw attention, but also move deals forward.
I give huge credit to the White House, to President Trump, and to Prime Minister Starmer.
This tech deal is a very big deal for both countries, according to the president and the prime minister.
President Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi signed a framework agreement for securing a supply of critical minerals and rare earths.
He got Toyota to spend, what is it? They're going to have like $10 billion on American manufacturing, Japan's biggest automaker.
Now think about as well the optics for Trump.
Well, Toyota also has over $200 billion in debt.
Asia.
Other Asian countries have announced trade deals with the United States. The president posted on Truth Social about one of them, posting that the country has agreed to pay the U.S. $350 billion. He says they've agreed to buy oil and gas in vast quantities from the U.S.
The president now finalizing a trade deal, by the way, with South Korea. Includes a $350 billion investment into the U.S. in exchange for lower tariffs.
I expect big things from these China talks overnight.
Wrapping up his 5-day Asia tour, it's the moment of truth for this trip, but the president is pretty cool as a cucumber.
Maybe part of the reason President Trump is so optimistic is because he's been building up momentum over the past couple of days, leading into this high-stakes meeting with President Xi.
Which he says is going to, quote, work out well for everybody. The president is touting a successful trip so far from Malaysia to Japan to now in South Korea.
This president is ushering in the golden age of America. He's literally brought in trillions of dollars in new investment to America.
Well, there you go. There you have it. And that was kind of a long video for the White House. They don't usually post a compilation that long. So it actually piques my curiosity about when Trump's going to meet with President Xi again. I believe it's coming up soon. I think it's in like April or something, right? Yeah, April. So next scheduled meeting between President Trump and President Xi Jinping will be in April of 2026 when he visits Beijing. Accepted an invitation from Xi following their October 2025 meeting in South Korea. That's right. Yeah, I forgot they met in South Korea. All right. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to look into, I noticed not on that last video, but on a video that I just showed prior, there was in the scrolling marquee, it mentioned that that protests in Iran are subsiding. And with the seemingly infinite number of scandals that continue happening, no, I haven't seen much with regard to Iran, at least not in the last couple of days. No, the protests in Iran are largely subsiding. Major sources, including Al Jazeera, Institute for Study of War, ABC News, The Guardian, and others report that after peaking around early January of 26, widespread street demonstrations have significantly decreased or halted in most areas due to an extremely brutal crackdown by security forces. Heavy patrols, checkpoints, arrests, tens of thousands of arrests, and internet blackouts have suppressed visible activity, with some residual small-scale dissent like window chants or quick gatherings. The regime is not on the verge of being overthrown, while the unrest sparked by economic collapse and escalating to anti-regime demands has been among the most serious challenges in decades, with thousands killed, estimates between 2,000 and 5,000. Look, just the other day, I read over 12,000, or anywhere from 12 to 20,000 have been killed. So, not sure what the exact numbers are going to end up being if we ever even end up finding out. The Islamic Republic's security apparatus remains loyal and in control. Analysts note no critical internal fractures or overwhelming opposition momentum, although underlying grievances persist and could flare again around mourning periods or Nowruz. The regime views it as a major threat, but appears to have quelled it for now through repression. Yeah, man, that sucks, man. That's awful. That sucks to hear that. It sounds like the people largely, I don't know if I want to say the word or use the phrase giving up. But yeah, it looks like they were able to retain their power, it would seem. All right, so Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, through the strategic imposition of tariffs, the president moved quickly and decisively to preemptively address numerous emergencies. He has regained our sovereignty. I believe that the Supreme Court will not want to create chaos and that President Trump's actions are on sound footing. His decisive efforts on behalf of the American people have addressed unfair trade imbalances, challenges in critical mineral supply chains, and fentanyl deaths. And of course, he's talking about the upcoming Supreme Court decision with regard to Trump's tariffs.
Let me ask you, broadly speaking, about the tariff portion of this. The president, as you well know, has justified his authority to impose previous tariffs without going to Congress by declaring national emergencies. It's an issue before the Supreme Court right now. We're all awaiting the High Court's decision. What is the national emergency that justifies these new slate of tariffs?
The national emergency is avoiding a national emergency. That it is a strategic decision by the president. This is a geopolitical decision, and he
of course, they're talking about Greenland, the tariffs against Greenland.
The U.S. to avoid a hot war.
I don't know,
so
man.
Why wouldn't?
Not sure if this might be over the line or not.
Same thing. That what if we had a national emergency coming with these gigantic trade balances that we had with the rest of the world? I've been in financial markets for 30, 45 years. Much better to be strategic, avoid the emergency.
You're saying it's a national emergency, but you're also saying it's a threat that's years away. How can both be true, Mr. Secretary?
Because you are avoiding creating the emergency, Kristen. What if during the great financial crisis, someone had raised their hand in 2005, 2006 and said, stop with subprime mortgages, but no one did.
People
President
did.
Trump is raising his hand.
Have you not seen The Big Short?
That is preventing the emergency.
Yeah, I don't think that was a really good analogy to use, but I don't know, man. I just don't think that would be justifiable enough to impose tariffs against several European countries, because it could be a national security issue down the road if we don't bring Greenland into the fold of the U.S. I don't know, man. I think, honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I think Trump's move to tariff those countries, it's a bad idea. I don't think that's a good idea at all. I think it's a really bad idea. But I guess we'll just have to see where it goes. All right. So anyway, Secretary Chris Wright with the Secretary of Energy, right? Yeah, energy. Coal is critical to the reliability and affordability of electricity and essential to maintaining a strong grid. The states that have rushed to close coal plants have seen a rise in electricity costs, especially in Minnesota. Americans don't like that, and neither does President Trump.
Mr. Secretary, why do we need to keep the coal people going?
Oh, because it's critical to America's electricity grid.
Keeps electricity
cheap. Coal has been the largest source of global electricity for over a century.
Middle class doesn't have a lot of wiggle room these days,
it's not the largest
financially.
Anymore. It's been passed by natural gas. But it's critical to the reliability and affordability of electricity in the U.S. The states that have rushed to close their coal plants have also had rapidly escalating electricity prices. Americans don't like that. President Trump doesn't like that.
Well, there you have it. And let me just ask one more thing. I haven't checked the value of silver in a couple of days. And if you haven't seen it, hold on to your hats, man. Value per ounce. It was nuts the other day. And I assume it's probably still elevated pretty high. Yeah, between $93 and $94 per troy ounce. Holy shit. JM Bullion, $94.16 USD per ounce currently. That's as of 11:04 p.m., which is as of this recording right now, January 19th, up about 361 recently. So yeah, it's approaching $95 an ounce, and I think it's going to keep going up. I mean, look, I'm no financial advisor, and I'm no like big bullish individual with regard to silver. I'm just saying that silver, it's in all of our electronics, it's in all this AI infrastructure, it's in the solar panels, it's in electric vehicles, it's in our smartphones, it's in all of our electronics, and apparently it's in quite short supply, which would explain why it's up to damn near $100 per ounce. Just 5 years ago, it was like $15 an ounce. And I thought that was even kind of high historically speaking. Like back in like the 2000s, it was like $6-7 an ounce for silver, and now it's up to $100 an ounce. So yeah, anybody who invested in silver, man, you're looking pretty good right now. Way to go, good for you. All right, so anyway, we'll roll on to the next thing. The Department of Energy, Secretary Chris Wright, the Democrats and others are saying data centers are the cause of rising electricity prices. They're not the cause of rising electricity prices. In fact, they can be a key part of the solution. That's what President Trump's order is trying to do. Yeah, I believe that he's talking about an order that that President Trump signed with regard to large tech companies and these big companies building these data centers. They're going to put out some auction method. Like I guess they're going to be auctioning electricity to some degree or another. But apparently, whatever it is that they're doing. Well, not only the auction process, but they're also, I'm trying to remember who it was, Google. There were a few tech giants that agreed to pay an elevated rate for electricity just because it's going to cause the local economy to suffer because they're opening up these data centers somewhat near residential areas, and they don't want the electricity the cost to increase for them.
President Trump proposed an electricity auction in which tech companies will be forced to cover the costs of new power plants. Are big tech giants, are they going to be paying for data center power?
Absolutely.
Well,
in fact, they very much want to. They need a lot more electricity in the United States, and they...
Yeah, see, that's the thing. These big tech companies, they want to pay, like... Look, they don't really want to pay more money for electricity, but they understand that they're going to have to in order to keep a constant flow of electricity. Because if they're pulling too much, it's going to cause a lot of financial unrest in these local communities, and then you're going to get people that are demanding to shut down these data centers. And the local government, man, local government has a lot of power locally, and if you get enough people that demand that they start shutting down these facilities because they're drawing too much power, they might be able to actually see that done. So, I would assume that big tech wants to avoid something like that.
They don't want to drive up electricity prices. The Democrats and others are saying they're the cause of rising electricity prices. It's a great way to escape blame.
Don't forget Orange Man.
They're not the cause of rising electricity prices. In fact, they can be a key part of the solution, and that's what President Trump's order is trying to do. We can work together to stop the rise of electricity prices, even in the blue states that have done everything possible to elevate their electricity prices.
Yes, they are. They absolutely are, right? Trying to roll out all that green nonsense, trying to hedge all of their bets on technology that doesn't even exist yet, trying to suggest that like the next level of a battery technology. What is it? A solid state, I think is what it was, like solid state batteries, which not even in production. But anyway, yeah. So that's of course a big problem. Just trying to throw everything into wind and solar, shutting down nuclear facilities, shutting down coal production, whereas the Trump administration is doing the opposite. I think they said that they've got something like 12 or up to 12 nuclear power facilities that may be coming online in the coming years. And it was all through President Trump's executive orders with regard to energy. All right, Secretary Sean Duffy, day 2 of the Freedom Means Affordable Cars Tour. The Detroit Auto Show, President Trump's Auto Dream Team is live, and we could watch. Of course, I'm not going to watch all this because I think this is quite a long video. Yeah. It's a half an hour. I'm assuming that he's going to speak here.
Down the price of energy. Right now,
let's give it a minute.
Gas prices are as low as they were for the first time back in 2019. So now you have Donald Trump 45 competing with Donald Trump 47 to see what Trump can win to get prices lower.
I mean, back then,
but when you
gas dropped to $1.79.
Prices, That's putting money directly in the pockets of the American people, but also a lot of our manufacturing take up a lot of energy. And we drive down the cost then to invest in America because energy is cheaper in America, which means you have more dollars to invest in more plants, invest in more workers, invest in more innovation. So all of these policies come together to make America stronger, better and brighter. And the three of us will continue to mention, this is just year one. We are just getting started. And you're already seeing the impact and the excitement about the rules that are coming into play to make manufacturing, and especially auto manufacturing, great in this country.
Okay, so I will repost that if you want to take a look at that half-hour-long video. Again, there's a link to my profile in the description. And we'll head to Kelly Loeffler. This is the real Main Street story you won't hear about in the mainstream media. Fair trade and tax cuts are driving huge new growth and job creation for America's small businesses.
CEO of Print Service and Manufacturing, Eric Williams, says fair trade policies are leveling the playing field for American companies like his. He says since the tariffs have been in place, they've seen a flood of orders come in, and they're no longer at an unfair advantage of getting things overseas.
Now that it's level set, we're seeing orders increase, domestic companies are growing, and there's more opportunities than ever here domestically because American and non-American companies can buy from the U.S. again.
According to Williams, they've been able to add new machinery and a new factory, which he says was not possible without the new tax bill.
Able to write off 100% of the facility is monumental for us in our growth, and without that, we just couldn't have done it.
Williams noted that they have grown over 500 employees within a short amount of time, and by the end of the year, they expect 1,000 employees. In Macon, Fiona King, 41 NBC News.
Hell yeah, man, 1,000 employees. That's good news. Okay, Bureau of Land Management, National, BLM 2025 Success Snapshot number 10. The BLM treated over 1.2 million acres using chemical, biological, manual, mechanical methods and prescribed fire to reduce wildfire risk on America's public lands. And you can learn more at the following link. And let me just see what, okay, blm.gov. So that's going to be the only link below in the description that starts with blm.gov. But man, what a photo. That's really cool, man. That's a very nice photo. All right. And rolling on to the next. I think I'm getting close to the end at this point. Pretty sure I am. Yeah, here we go. Now we're getting into the NASA stuff. This is how I definitely know that we're at the end of the episode. So from NASA, our moon-bound Artemis II rocket is on its launch pad. The Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft rolled out from NASA Kennedy's Vehicle Assembly Building, reaching Launch Pad 39B at 6:42 p.m. Eastern. Read more at go.nasa.gov, and that'll be below too. And this was back on January the 17th. And of course, that was on Saturday. So it's ready, man. It's up, it's ready to rock and roll. That's heading to the moon. And once that launches and once the astronauts head up, it'll be as early as February the 6th. And once the astronauts get to the farthest point during their travel around the moon, they will have gone farther than any humans ever in space. And from NASA, we're heading to the moon. The launch window opens as early as February 6th for our crewed NASA Artemis mission. Throughout the journey, we'll bring you live coverage on NASA Plus. Oh, that kind of sucks, man. It sounds like you got to pay for it. That's what that sounds like. All right, so let's take a look at this.
We shall return.
This is a live look.
We will see things that no human has ever seen.
We want to know what's out there just beyond the horizon.
Amazing live views from the spacecraft.
Coming back to Earth, say we were doing like 5 or 7 miles. 7 miles a second. Those are just not numbers that humans generally think about.
That's why the spacecraft catches on fire when it hits the atmosphere.
Pushing ourselves to explore is core to who we are.
It's in our nature.
It's a part of being a human.
And liftoff. 6 million pounds on the pad. 250,000 miles.
6 million pounds.
When humanity sets big goals, we can accomplish extraordinary things.
Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait till they launch. But I don't want to pay for it, man. I don't make that kind of money. I can't pay for subscription services. I don't know, man. NASA Plus, anything that's got a plus attached to it, sounds like it's going to cost some money. So anyway, Anyway, I'll be on the lookout for that. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It'll mean a lot to me if you subscribe. And I'll be dropping a new show tomorrow as I do The Swamp every evening, Monday through Friday, covering the swamp and everyone in it, the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the agencies. Also, I post daily on X, so feel free to comment over there too if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and God bless America.